Do you want to learn how to build a custom vanity cabinet for your bathroom like I did? Well, if this interests you, stick around. Alright, well, I'm getting ready to work on the vanity cabinet now, so I wanted to point out a few things as I get started. So what I first did is I built a 2x4 frame that goes across the entire distance. So I measured from the back wall up to the face of this. There'll be a face frame that'll go perfectly vertical here. But I didn't want this to line up with that because I want it to have like a toe kick to it, and so I built it back about 2 inches less, and then now I want to build the platform. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go out in the shop and I'll talk to you about how I want to design that platform to start with, because there's a special feature about it that I want to make sure I incorporate, and when I do that I need to plan out ahead on what that platform is going to look like and the exact thickness it needs to be, so forth. So I wanted to point out here that the ground wasn't quite level, so as you notice I had to wedge it up, and when I built this I put some blocking behind on both sides so I can screw into it. I just used some scrap 2x4s from another project, and it's going to be all covered up. It's just a foundational piece, so it doesn't have to be pretty, but it needs to be level. So I checked for level on here as well as here. Made sure I went all the way around, because if your foundation's off, then it's not going to look right. So make sure you get that nice and level using those wedges. I prefer the plastic ones, and so they don't rot. So with that, let's go out in the shop. We'll talk about the platform. Here we are, we're out here in the shop, and I wanted to show you the piece of material. It's a barnwood from Home Depot that I picked up. So what I need to do is an account for this thickness. So this is a face frame that I'm going to build that's going to go all the way around that opening, and so this will be framed all the way around in a rectangle. So the bottom of it, I don't want going all the way to the floor. I want to leave some gap there between the floor and the bottom of this, and then that recess that I showed you on that frame will act as a toe kick, and then I'll line that with some baseboard probably, or I'll tile it. And so with that, I want to point out a few features with regard to this. So the base of this is going to kind of be floating in the air, and I don't want it to be quite level with the top of that foundation platform. I want this to drop down just a little bit. And so with this, on the back of this, if we kind of lay out, we'll grab a pencil here, if we lay out a design, is the top of this, when I open the cabinet, I want this to be flush straight into the shelf on the bottom. So when you open the cabinet doors, the top of this will be perfectly flush with the top of the material on the shelf right there. And what I want to do is, since I have the extra material, I said in another video that I was able to purchase a giant sheet of quartz from a local tile shop that was a remnant cut off from a kitchen that they had done. It was a rather large piece, so I had to cut it in sections. I built a little A-frame. They put it in the back of my truck with a forklift, and when I got it home, I had to cut it into some more manageable pieces. I just used a diamond blade with that and cut it. Once I had those manageable pieces down, then I used my sliding wet tile saw to cut it into the sections I needed. I've used it on the countertop. I've used it on what is that called? The curb in the shower. I used it on the bench seat. I've used it in the niches shelves. And what I want to do is I want to cut a piece where when you open the counter door, the cabinet door on this vanity, that there's a piece of that on the bottom showing. A few reasons why. One, I have the extra material ready. It's not a giant piece. Two, it's going to give me a nice watertight floor for the bottom of this. So if any leaks ever happen, or you're storing something under there, it's liquid that spills, it's going to force the water out of the cabinet through this opening, because I will have it caulked all the way around the bottom, and so the material will be made out of quartz. So since I have the extra material, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So what I want to do is I'm going to measure the thickness of the quartz and accommodate for that. It's 3/4 of an inch. I don't want to go all the way to the bottom. I want to leave a 1/2 inch reveal here. So I need to build a platform that's going to go from 3/4 of an inch in to a 1/2 inch in. And I get, I did the math, where is it? 2 1/4. So I'm going to build a platform that's 2 1/4 inch thick, that'll span from there to about here. That'll set on, let me get in the camera, that will set in on that foundation that I built. So if I build a platform that is 2/4 of an inch thick, and I set directly on that foundation, then when I build the face frame up to it, the face frame will have something to mount to, but there'll also be a 3/4 inch drop inside that then I'll be able to set that quartz material down in there. Now I'll probably put it in first before I put the face frame on, but you kind of get the idea. So with that, I just wanted to describe how I was laying out my cabinet. The important part here is to try to think ahead, try to plan it out, and do the best you can. Now, there's probably going to be some mistakes I made and I didn't think of, and that happens on every project, at least with me. But I learn from them. Each time I do a project and I make a mistake, I don't get defeated. I take that as a learning experience, and it's a way for me to improve when I do projects. And a lot of times other things relate to it. It just makes me better when it comes to doing projects. So if you make mistakes, don't feel defeated. It's just a learning experience, and you learn from it. Next time you do it, or if you're helping someone out, you'll be able to use that knowledge and pass it on. So don't get frustrated when you make mistakes. Take them as a learning experience and take a deep breath. I know sometimes it costs money when you make mistakes, but the more you can plan out ahead and the more advice you can get from other people, the better off your projects will be. So I just want to encourage you, don't hesitate to take on a project just because you're afraid to fail or afraid to make a mistake. That's part of it. A lot of times you're still a lot better ahead doing it yourself. Plus you did it. So that's even better in my book. So I'd rather it look a little less nice knowing I did it, that I tried my best, that I'm trying to improve and do DIYs, than to bring someone in to do it. And sometimes I just don't trust that they're going to do the job I want. But also I want to improve and be able to accomplish these because they're challenges for me. So I wish you luck in your project, and we'll see how the rest of this vanity goes out. I'll keep you updated along each step of the way. Now I have the material cut up for the shelf. So I ended up cutting it. I needed 11 7/8 by 45 1/4, and so I ended up cutting these two pieces at that distance. Now, if you remember, I need the thickness to be 2 1/4. So when I measured this, the distance between here and the 2 1/4 is 3/4 of an inch, and this happens to be about that thickness plywood. So what I'll end up doing is taking a strip and running it around the border, and probably some cross pieces in between, gluing and nailing these together just to kind of make a sandwiched piece. It'll be really strong, plus it'll be the exact thickness I need. So let's get going. so we're going to put these pieces together now. So I have my lock strips, my cross pieces, so I'm going to glue and brad nail those in. So let's get to it. Using 1.25 inch, 18 gauge brad nails. Now the strength is not in the nails, it's in the wood glue. Wood glue is very strong. Now this is just some cheap plywood from Home Depot that I had left over from another project. But I've learned my lesson on this. Cheaper plywood for some, you know, more of the furniture quality stuff is not very good. Something like this, just literally like making a foundation. It's going to be fine. You're not going to see pretty much any of it. All be covered up with something. Alright, so I have these cross pieces here just so that it'll take the weight of that countertop. That quartz material is pretty heavy. And I don't think I'm going to put it over the whole thing because some of this is going to be drawers. But when you open the cabinet area, I want to include it in there. Where's my pencil? You know, if you're ever searching for something, it's always going to be the last place you look. I've made a mark where these cross pieces are, so I know where to nail. You're wondering about this glue bottle. It's worth it. I bought it on Amazon. I really like it. Alright, so let's make sure these line up, the front and back. That's the important part. And then the sides. Then we'll get this held in place. Alright, so that's it. This is going to be my solid foundation that I'm going to put on that 2x4 frame that I showed you in the bathroom. This is just going to set right on top of it, and I'll end up mounting that with some long screws that'll go through this. Well, alright, so I'm out here in the shop. I've got to the point where I want to show you the layout of the face frame here. So let me flip the camera and we'll go from there. Alright, so what I've done here is I've laid out the face frame. I just have it roughed out right now. And so I just want to go over a few details with you. So when I measured the opening, so from side to side in that area, and I ended up being a 45 and 3/16. And so I cut two of the horizontal pieces at the 45 and 3/16. So I have those two pieces cut out, laid out here. Then I needed to figure out the vertical pieces, and that ended up being 32 1/4. So what I had to do is take into consideration the thickness of this, the thickness of the top, basically top and bottom. And I have another video on laying out that. And an easy way is you just put the two pieces together, use the tape measure. You don't even have to do math, but these are 3 1/2, so that's ended up being 7. So I ended up needing those to be 25 1/4. So I ended up cutting three pieces at 25 1/4. Now, I didn't want this piece here to be a full 3 1/2 inches, and the reason why is I want this to be drawers, and we have a small enough area as it is. I wanted to minimize the loss here of drawer space availability. So what I ended up doing was looking above the sink, and I needed from the edge over to where it would look right, I needed this piece right here to be 28 inches from the end. So I put that piece there. I ended up cutting this down to it's about 1 5/8 inches. And then I have a 2.5 inch on the end, and I needed that to be a little thicker because of the thickness of the mirror. I have a mirror frame that sticks out, and if I had this too much, then the drawer would hit the mirror. I didn't want that, so I needed to bump it out just a little bit more than this one. So that is the reason why I have the thicknesses they are, and that's the layout for the face frame. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pocket hole these in the frame, and after I get that done, I'll show you what that looks like. Alright, so this is the Kreg pocket hole jig, and so what it does is it comes with a special bit, and the tip of it recesses for the center of the screw, but it also has this shoulder here where your screw head then catches on the wood. So it makes for a nice strong joint for frames like this. And so the only thing is you have to move this collar based on the thickness of the wood you're screwing in. So I believe the last time I used it I was doing a 1/2 inch. Yeah, so it's set at the 1/2 inch mark. So I need to loosen this collar and slide this bit down until it reaches the 3/4 inch mark here. Then I'll have my bit ready to go for this. Also on the side of this there's also adjustment for 1/2 inch, so I need to move that up to the 3/4 inch mark. And what that does is it will end up screwing the bit at the right angle and the right depth. So you want to make sure that this is correct based on the thickness of the material you're doing. And then the Kreg screws come with a square bit. Tip of the screw head is a square bit, and it's a nice strong bit to screw in with. So I like using those. And then this feature is nice. It also has the ability to hook up to your dust collectors. So if you're screwing lots and lots of pocket holes, this comes in handy. Alright, so I have the pocket hole jig here lined up, and I said earlier I need to move this from the 1/2 inch to the 3/4. So what you do is you set where the shoulder of the bit is on 3/4, not the tip. And then you move the collar to the edge, and then you just lock the Allen wrench down. So I will go ahead and do that. I've already adjusted this to the 3/4 inch depth, and then I test fit a piece to make sure that when you lock it in that it holds the piece tight. This is an adjustable thread. You move it in and out as you put the piece to lock. Now I want to caution you when using this jig is to be careful what side you put it on. This side of the material is, I have a decorative side that I want out, and then there's a decorative, the back is slightly decorative but not near as much as the front, so it's not equal on both sides. So I want to make sure when I set this material in the jig that I have the face I want to keep against this stopper here, because the back piece, when you set it here, the drill goes in, that'll be on the back side. I want that hidden, so I don't want the pocket hole showing on the face of the cabinet. I want it on the back side. So make sure that your material that you want showing is against the rubber stopper, and then where the drill comes in is the back of it. That's the piece you want to make sure that's up against that. So other than that, it's pretty self-explanatory using it. You want to make sure that you put the screws in the appropriate spot. There's some markings here to help you with that. You don't want the material shifted where it drills out the side of the material. You want to try to center those holes. So with that, sometimes you get these two small ones next to each other, and then sometimes you can do a combination of the other two. Just depends on the thickness of the material, but it's better to try to get two of these pocket holes in the material. So let's get going drilling on these, and we'll see you when I'm done. Alright, so we're ready to start doing the pocket hole screws, getting them in and set. So there's a few things I want to cover with you when it comes to these pocket holes. Kreg sells these screws that you can go with it. They do sell soft and hardwood screws. The difference is the softwood / plywood, the threads are going to be a lot coarser and more spread out. Similar to like a drywall screw. And then the hardwood screws have a little bit skinnier threads and closer together. So make sure you're using the screws that are for the material. This is probably a pine or Douglas fir material that they have stained. And so this would be considered a softwood. And so you want to make sure to use the softwood screws. It'll have nice coarse thread. It just gives it that nice hard bite to it. And so if you use the hardwood ones, the threads wouldn't hold as well. So make sure you use the right screws. Also, on the back of them, that also tells you, depending on the thickness of material you have, it tells you what size screw to use. So I'm using 3/4 inch material. So you want to make sure and use the 1 1/4 screws. So this system all works together. Like I showed you earlier, the collar on that drill bit set at 3/4. The height of that sleeve collar that the drill bit slides into is set. So between both of those being set at 3/4 and these 1 1/4 screws, it gives you the maximized grip into the material without puncturing through the other side. So make sure you follow the directions because I want your projects to turn out nice, and this will be very helpful for you. So now that we have that established on the screws, I want to cover clamping. Kreg sells two different types of clamps. One is where they have these foot pedals on both sides to squeeze the material together, and another one has a stem. Like if you're doing a 90-degree, I have both. I have the other one in the drawer, but this is on the face frame. You're going to want to use the one that has the 2 feet marks, the 2 feet on them. I guess that's what they're called. So what you do is you just line up the material, get it nice and flush with your finger, and once you have it where you want it, then you just squeeze down. It's similar to vice grips. Has that locking wrench type mechanism. Came off just a little bit, so we'll make sure this is not lined up nice and tight here, because this is worth the effort of making sure it's nice and tight. Okay, so once you get this nice and lined up here, we have this temporarily held together with this clamp. And what we're going to do is we're going to insert 2 screws into the pocket holes that we drilled. And we're going to do that with the Kreg screws here. It has the square head on them. And the bit I have is the matching square head. Now, one thing I do want to caution you on, I don't recommend using an impact driver with this. I love my impact driver, but this is not something I like using it with. It's a little too much torque, and it's easily stripped out, especially on the softwood. So I like using the drill function on low speed, and on the where I'm drilling in a screw, where you can use the numbers as you know, kind of like a clutch gear. So I've found somewhere in the 7 to 9 range works for me on these pocket holes, and it stops me from accidentally over tightening them. So I'm going to go ahead and start putting these in. So I notice it's pretty soft, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it down to 7. So when we take this off, we have a nice strong joint there for our face frame. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat this on all 4 of those corners, get the 4 established, and then I'll put the middle vertical piece in after I get the 4 outside ones done. So let's get to it. All right, so now that we're done completing all 4 sides, what we need to do is line up the middle piece. Now you need to be careful because one is this material is flipped upside down. If you remember, this is the back, the part that's going to touch the actual 2x4s in mounting. And the face that shows in the bathroom is actually leaning against the table here. So since it's upside down, you need to be careful if you're putting in any of the other verticals to not accidentally put it on the left side instead of the right side on your measurements. So we're going to do is double check that before we insert that piece. But what we want to do is go ahead and put that middle bar in, and we'll go from there. All right, so what I've done is this is ended up being the top of the board. When I'm laying it out, I'm looking at it, I want this board to be on top. Just because there's an imperfection towards the top and it's going to be up underneath the countertop. So I want to make sure that this board is on top. So when I laid that down, and this is upside down, this is going to be my cabinet door area under the sink. So I measured out the 28 inches that I needed from the outside, and I put a pencil mark on the top and bottom, and then put that vertical piece and lined it up. So now what we need to do is clamp this down and screw those 2 screws in, and then flip it around and do the bottom portion, and then we'll be talking about how to line up for the drawers. I have my mark here. I want to make sure that it's lined up because you want the distance on each side to be square. That's one thing that's really nice about these pocket hole screws is depending on how you cut this material is how it's going to attach to here. So if you have a nice square cut, then it's going to make sure that it has a nice square joint on there. So we'll double check. We'll be measuring the diagonals here and making sure that it's nice and square. All right, so I've gone ahead and laid out the face frame here. It's all pocket hole screwed in, and this section here will have 2 doors. They'll open for underneath the sink, and then this section here will have drawers, and so we're going to need to measure that out. Before I go any further, I want to make sure that this is square. Theoretically, as long as the material's square and I cut these nice and square when they're jointed, theoretically this should all be square, but this is wood. It has tendency to sometimes be a little off, so let's double check. We have 55.5 on that side, And then on this side, again, we have 55.5. So and 34.5. So we have the inner two compartments that are square and the outside is square. So those pocket holes did their job. That means using my miter saw, getting nice square cuts here, clamping it, make sure it's lined up. It all paid off. So first, before I go any further, I also want to go test fit this in the bathroom to make sure. There might be some inconsistencies in the wall. I just want to know if I need to scribe out any on the edges that I need to do that before I go too much further. So I'll go do that off camera and then we'll come back and we'll start talking about the drawers. All right, so if we look at the face frame here, I went ahead and decided the height. I wanted an 8-inch drawer. And then I have a bigger drawer down here and I'll cover that later. It's a surprise, but you're gonna enjoy it. So make sure you stick around for other videos. But what I'm doing now is I wanna put a piece of plywood on the left and right of these openings going all up and down. That way I have something to mount my drawer slides to. And so what I did here is I, off camera, went ahead and took some plywood that I have painted and did the pocket hole screws in it. This is the other Kreg clamp I was talking about. If you're doing perpendicular mounts, one of them sticks in the pin and clamps. It just helps you hold it together. And the reason why is I want a nice flush piece all the way up and down this, and so that just helps hold it together. And I can start screwing on top and working my way down where I know this pin's lined up. Once I have all those in, I could take that out and then put the last one in, and then I'll do it on this side. So I went ahead and clamped it up where I have it flush with my bench top here, so I could set the plywood on. And then the inside of the counter, inside of the cabinet, I have quartz right here where the workbench is going to be. So these pieces of plywood will actually sit directly on a piece of quartz, and then they'll allow me to mount drawer slides for a drawer on the top and bottom here. So I'll go ahead and get that done and then I'll check back with you. Now to go to the other side. So I put this piece of scrap wood here so when I clamp on it, it doesn't ruin the face frame that I'm mounting to. Needing to clamp something, sometimes putting that piece of scrap wood there. Going down, I am using my finger to make sure it's flush on the inside here. On this side, I was just rubbing my finger back and forth, and you'll feel any lip as it appears. You know, wood is not perfectly straight, so sometimes just putting slight pressure there, and then you feel that nice smooth transition. So you can just slightly put pressure one way or another as you're going. Sometimes they need a little more convincing and you can use another clamp. And as you go down, you can adjust the board as needed with a clamp. So the other side was pretty straight all the way. This one needed a little convincing. But once you put the screw in, hold it in place, you're good to go. So I went ahead off camera and that didn't feel too good. All right, so off camera, I did do a partial test fit. I didn't do it all the way because I need to take down the mirror for the medicine cabinet. I have some counter of this, not a counter, it's the quartz on the curb going into the shower that sticks out a little bit. And then on the other side I have the medicine cabinet, so there was no way for me to squeeze it in. So when I do the final install, I'm going to have to remove the medicine cabinet. But it has a rather large mirror on it. It's pretty heavy, and I only want to take it down once. So I was pretty confident, double measured it, checked everything. So I'm 99% sure that's going to fit. If not, I could use my hand plane just to give a little bevel on one of the edges to get it to slide in. But it'll be a nice fit once we get it installed. But again, I'm going to need to take that mirror down, and I don't want to break it. So I'm going to do it all nice steady pace and do that at the same time. So at this point we're ready to install. So I have the two wings here that I'm going to use to mount my drawer slides on, and we will go from there. After I get the bottom drawer in, I will end up putting a cross member in the back using pocket hole screws, but I need to get this drawer designed and built first, and this will give me a nice structure to it. But I need to get that design first, and it's a surprise, so it'll be coming up. I'll do a video probably just on this drawer. And I will need to drill a hole in this for the electrical for what's going in this drawer, and so I will do that off camera. I'm just going to use a hole saw and drill a bit and drill a hole using my hole saw, and then we'll be ready to install. All right, so I just wanted to discuss a little bit about this frame really quick on the layout portion of it. And so this is material that I did not finish. It came pre-finished from Home Depot, and the reason why I did that is I have it in our kids' bathroom, and I built everything out of this material, and I want it to match. I want to look like they were done at the same time by the same contractor. So with that, when I was cutting these, I needed to intentionally leave the finish on the edges that will be seen. So this, when you open the cabinet door on both sides, you're going to see that edge. And then when you're standing in the bathroom and you open the drawer, you're going to see this edge. So since I had to cut this one, this goes up against the wall and is, as you can see, some kind of pine, Douglas fir, and so that'll be up against the wall hidden, and so that allows me to have it the show side, so to speak. When I open the drawer, I'll be able to see. Now granted, when you're opening the drawer, you're going to be standing at the sink that's right here, and you're going to be looking that way, and so I opt to have the finish side here because most of the view is going to come from this point and not this point. So I didn't have this finished, but the angle in the bathroom, it's going to be very difficult for you to even see this part. Same part when I did this cross member here on the underneath part. Oops, sorry, almost dropped the camera. That's the unfinished side. So you're going to have to lay on the ground in the bathroom to see that. And then the finished side is right here as you're looking down. So when you're laying out, think about those. Think about the vantage point you're going to have when you're looking at this project from the end result, so that you have a nicer product overall. It'll make a difference in how it looks in the long run, and so it's worth that extra step just to think mentally, when I put this piece here, where are the angles that I'm going to see that from? And those little steps like that, they're going to help you have better overall projects, and you're going to learn from them. You know, I can tell you this because I've made that mistake before where I've installed it and I'm like, man, if I would have just thought about flipping that the other way when I installed it, it would have been fine. Now it's too late. I would have to rebuild it. So sometimes I have rebuilt it, and sometimes it's a learning experience that I'll leave. So with that, I just wanted to leave that helpful hint to you, and we're gonna go and get this installed. Hey, Chloe, this is my other shop dog. Hey, Coco Bear. You say hi to everybody. Yeah. Chloe is very, very old. She's 14 years old, which for a chocolate lab is very, very old. So she gets around, but she can't hear very well. But she sees pretty good. But she's just the sweetest dog in the whole world. She was my first shop dog. And then now we have Lucy, our puppy, who you've seen in another video. So this is Chloe. She didn't have the stamina to make the first video. So, all right. Well, say bye to everybody, Chloe. You say bye? You say bye? Yeah. All right. So I just want to give you an update of where we are in the bathroom. So remember we built the 2x4 foundation frame under there. And so what I'm going to end up doing is it acts like a toe kick. I'm going to take another piece of this. It's 3.5 inches. It's the thickness of the 2x4, and I'll slide it up under and put it there once I get the floor on. So that'll probably be one of the last things I do, is finish that decorative piece underneath. But as you can see, we have the face frame here. It ties nice in the corner over here. And I had to take that mirror door off for that medicine cabinet so that I can squeeze it in there. It's still a tight fit. Had to get that in there. So this is what I ended up doing, cutting some quartz pieces. One whole piece goes along here, and then I had to cut a strip to finish just because I was dealing with scrap. So I put some clear silicone around all the edges before I put the face frame on, so it's nice and protected, watertight. And so if for any reason sink starts leaking, dripping, anything going on, any cleaning products we have under a sink start leaking, then it'll have to be force its way out of the front of the cabinet and not getting in anywhere else where it could start destroying things. So looking really good to this point. And so just kind of give you what it'll look like. We're gonna have more subway tile along here once I finish that up, and to give you a full ceiling shot. And so we have the window above the sink. I put a bigger window in. It was just a small 2x2, and this is a 3x3, so we gained a foot all the way around it. Huge difference on amount of light letting in. I put the same quartz material on the window seal there, same as the counter and below the sink. And again, we have the curb, the bench seat, these knee wall caps, and then also the shelves inside the niche. So it's nice having all the same material to work with, and it's nice having that wet tile saw so I can cut it to what I need. So I'm gonna get the mirror back on here. This is a medicine cabinet I built. I built this, redid this wall out of 2x8 so that I can have a nice deep medicine cabinet. So this is ends up being 7 inches on the shelf here, and then I had glass cut with the mirrors. So it makes a big difference, a lot more storage in here. And then I also ran power so that we could have our electric toothbrushes inside here and not on the countertop. So wife's really happy, and don't worry, those are GFI protected. And we'll get the mirror back on, and then we will start working on getting the cabinet doors and drawers done for this. Thanks for watching. Well, as always, I hope you were either encouraged, helped, or inspired by this video. If you enjoyed watching me build this face frame for this custom vanity cabinet, hit the like button. And if you're not already subscribed, I wish you'd consider subscribing so you can see my other videos. Also, if you want to see me build the custom doors and drawers for this, hit that bell and it'll notify you next time I put out a video. I really appreciate you watching today, and I'll see you on the next video. Have a great day.